every single time. Trump always chickens out. He's not a deal maker. He's not a negotiator. He's a taco.
America is up for grabs. While you pay more for groceries, gas, and rent, he's cashing in favors from enemies of America.
It's not about Republicans or Democrats now. It's about right and wrong. Tell your senator, this is wrong.
Donald Trump just got roasted beyond recognition, and he's not taking it well. A new Lincoln Project ad has him in full meltdown mode, and trust me, it's even funnier than you're imagining. What could the ad possibly say to make the man this angry? You've got to see this to believe it. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Donald Trump has never handled criticism well, but when it comes from the Lincoln Project, he seems to take it as a personal attack. Sure, criticizing Trump isn't exactly groundbreaking, but somehow this small band of Never Trump Republicans consistently gets under his skin in a way others just don't. Why? Well, for one, the Lincoln Project doesn't just criticize him, they mock him relentlessly, and if there's one thing Trump's ego can't handle, it's being laughed at. The feud between Trump and the Lincoln Project has been brewing since the group launched in late 2019, formed by a bunch of conservative strategists who decided Trump was an existential threat to their own party. They found a special niche, trolling Trump with ads so cutting that even his loyal supporters sometimes can't ignore them. The Lincoln Project's first big hit was an ad called Morning in America, which tore into Trump's handling of the pandemic and made him so mad he ranted about it on Twitter for hours. He called them rhinos, Republicans in name only, and claimed they were loser types, which coming from Trump is practically a badge of honor. From that point on, their feud became must-see TV.
When Trump goes hard on something, just bet on the dip. Wait for Trump to blink, then cash in on the rebound.
It's not just corrupt, it's oligarchy. It's our entire system twisted to make the Trump family rich. You get higher prices, he gets rich. The bad guys get whatever they want.
You voted for a stronger economy, not to close over 300 hospitals in farm states. But Congress voted to put the burden on you, to put your family and your finances at risk.
And it's not just the content of the ads that drives Trump insane, it's the delivery. These aren't your standard campaign ads. They have a pinch of dark humor, a sprinkle of pettiness, and they hammer on Trump's well-documented insecurities. They feel less like political messaging and more like a roast. Take the time they released an ad targeting Trump's relationship with Brad Parscale, his former campaign manager. The ad painted Parscale as a sycophant using Trump's campaign money to splurge on sports cars. The cherry on top, a line suggesting Trump would turn on Parscale the moment his poll numbers dropped. Shortly after, Trump demoted Parscale. It's as if every ad they produce is designed specifically to hit Trump where it hurts the most. Much like a celebrity refusing to read bad reviews, Trump can't seem to ignore these attacks. But unlike a star who might laugh it off during an interview, Trump goes on the defensive in spectacular fashion. His inability to brush it off only makes the ads more effective and funnier. Imagine if LeBron James broke down in a post-game interview over a tweet saying he missed too many free throws. That's Trump's level of sensitivity here. But why does he react so strongly? What's the psychology behind it? Experts on public figures and ridicule suggest that people like Trump, whose public personas hinge on appearing larger than life, are particularly vulnerable to mockery. Criticize Trump on policy, and it's business as usual. Make fun of his look, his insecurities, or his persona as a self-made billionaire, and suddenly it feels personal. Trump, who's built his brand on being the best, the richest, and the greatest, can barely tolerate the idea that someone might think otherwise. It's why he's gone out of his way to publicly defend his hand size, his wealth, and even his hair over the years. The Lincoln Project understands this on a deeper level than most of his critics, and they lean into it hard. The brilliance of their ads is how they expose Trump's weaknesses using nothing but his own words and actions. It's like giving him enough rope to tie himself in knots and then pointing at it with a loud laugh track. And that's exactly what brings us to the latest ad, the one that has Trump completely spiraling. This wasn't just a typical jab at his policies or his leadership style. It went straight for his most sensitive spots. Without giving too much away, let's just say it involves some choice phrases that hit at his ego, his popularity, and maybe worst of all, his fear of being irrelevant. The Lincoln Project is smart enough to know that Trump's ego makes him their best ally. His over-the-top reactions generate even more attention for the ads, giving them a life far beyond their original release. It's like handing out free popcorn at the circus. You can't help but stick around for the show, and the best part, the more he rants and rages, the more he confirms every mockery they've made. It's a cycle Trump keeps falling into, and it's a PR gift the Lincoln Project just keeps on unwrapping. Which raises the question, what was it about this particular ad that pushed him over the edge? If past ads set him off by poking fun at his failing poll numbers or his entourage of enablers, this new one must have hit a whole different level. We'll get into the details of that ad in the next section, but for now, it's clear that Trump versus the Lincoln Project is no ordinary battle of words. It's a full-blown spectacle, with the former president constantly playing the role of his own worst enemy. Could a single ad really be that bad? Well, once you hear about the Lincoln Project's latest masterpiece, you'll understand why Trump's reaction almost broke the internet. The ad, called Limburger, is a sharp, smelly jab at Donald Trump, and yes, smelly is exactly what I mean. Let's break it down. This wasn't just a boring campaign-style ad. It was an all-out assault on Trump with visuals and commentary so over the top that it almost felt like a Saturday Night Live skit, but sharper. The ad starts innocently enough, but very quickly you're hit with garbage. Literal garbage dumps flash across the screen, paired with images of dirty diapers, piles of animal poop, and even moldy cheese. And then the voiceover says it, Trump smells. Not figuratively, but literally. The ad pulls no punches, alleging that the former president, to put it politely, doesn't exactly smell like roses. For anyone who's familiar with Trump's ego and obsession with appearances, you know this hit him like a brick, but it gets worse in a hilarious way. The ad includes a quote from comedian Kathy Griffin, who swears that Trump has a distinct smell. She describes it as body odor, with kind of like a scented makeup product. If you can imagine the face Trump made when he heard that, you're probably not far off. And just when you think the ad can't get any more absurd, flies start buzzing in the background, and a voice asks, "Donald, is that you?" The Lincoln Project has always thrived on mocking Trump's insecurities, but this one dug deeper than usual. Trump has spent decades building an image as the untouchable, untarnished billionaire, a man who's wealthy, powerful, and above all else, superior. An ad like this doesn't just poke holes in that image, it slashes it with a machete. Making fun of someone's policies or political record is one thing. It's stuffy, formal, and easy to shrug off. But making fun of something like body odor, that's personal, and it's humiliating in a way that policies could never be. Trump isn't just thin-skinned, he's famously obsessed with his looks and public perception. This ad attacks him at the core of that obsession. This isn't the first time humor has been used as a weapon against a political figure, though. Research shows the humor tends to undermine authority figures because it makes them less intimidating. A well-placed joke can turn fear or awe into ridicule, and once that happens, it's hard to undo. For Trump, who has pitched himself as larger than life for decades, being reduced to dirty diapers and cheesy insults is like kryptonite. The Lincoln Project understands this better than most. With every ad they release, they seem to ask, what's going to make him the angriest? And then they deliver. But as funny as this ad is, its true genius lies in how it provokes its target. Trump loves retaliating, especially when he feels mocked. The Lincoln Project knows this and practically hands him a microphone every time they release something like this. The new ad wasn't just meant to make people laugh, it was designed to light a fire under Trump, knowing full well he'd have a public meltdown. And let's just say they got exactly what they wanted. But before we get into how Trump handled it, and trust me, it was dramatic, it's worth taking a step back to appreciate the simplicity of this strategy. The ad didn't rely on complex arguments or detailed statistics. Instead, it went straight for the most basic visceral insult imaginable. And the best part, it worked. Trump's reaction gave it way more attention than it could have ever gotten on its own. More on that in a second, but let's just say this. Limburger managed to turn the former president into the internet's newest punchline. Trump's reaction to the Limburger ad was so over the top that it practically stole the spotlight from the ad itself. It didn't take long, just hours after the video went live, he blasted onto Truth Social with a series of angry all-caps posts aimed at the Lincoln Project. And let's be honest, they were probably grinning ear to ear the whole time. His tirade was everything they wanted: defensive, furious, and most importantly, viral. Picture it, Trump typing away at 3 a.m., the veins in his neck probably bulging as he types things like failed project, rhinos, and his favorite insult, losers. In one post, he called them sick, accused them of running out of money, and questioned why they were even allowed to exist. Yes, really. He went so far as to demand that nobody should give them a dime. This is the kind of all-consuming fury that no PR team can contain, and the Lincoln Project knows that better than anyone. It's like they've mastered how to press his outrage button and wait for the fireworks. But it wasn't just Truth Social that got the brunt of his meltdown. There are reports that he ranted about the ad during private conversations with donors and advisors, describing it as vicious and beyond the pale. Those close to him apparently tried to downplay the ad, shrugging it off as a gimmick, but clearly Trump wasn't buying it. At a recent rally, he brought it up unprompted, calling the Lincoln Project the worst group of people in politics. You could almost feel the secondhand embarrassment through the screen. It's like watching someone trip over their shoelaces and then blame the sidewalk for existing. If Trump's response had a theme, it was, "Look how much I don't care. Please pay attention to me." But instead of brushing it off and moving on, he fed right into the narrative that the ad created about him. If the Lincoln Project's goal was to make him seem thin-skinned and wildly reactive, congratulations, mission accomplished. He turned their parody into free advertising, ensuring almost everyone with a Twitter account saw or heard about it. The whole thing is almost too predictable. Trump's reactions are like clockwork. Mock him, wait for the caps lock meltdown, and then watch as he unintentionally draws more attention to the criticism itself. It's a loop he's been stuck in since his days of fighting with Rosie O'Donnell on live TV. The more he tries to fight back, the more he amplifies the very thing he's angry about. It's a toddler tantrum level of self-sabotage, kicking and screaming over spilled milk while the world stands around recording it for TikTok. The irony, Trump's obsession with toughness is part of what makes his reactions so much worse. He's built his brand on the idea that he's unflappable, untouchable, the ultimate alpha male. But then something like the Limburger ad comes along, and suddenly all that bravado melts into petulant rants about fake conservatives. If he were truly the unbothered billionaire he claims to be, this kind of thing would barely register. But instead, he can't seem to resist the bait, and that's what keeps the whole drama alive. What's fascinating, though, is how the internet turns his meltdowns into a spectacle of their own. Within minutes of his Truth Social posts, screenshots were flying across Twitter, Instagram, even Reddit. Memes popped up left and right, Trump's face photoshopped onto a block of cheese, fake scratch and sniff jokes about his rallies, and endless variations of the hashtag #ShareTrumpSmells. Late night talk shows had a field day, with comedians doing their best impressions of his all-caps fury. It wasn't just a reaction, it was a full-scale internet event. This kind of attention might seem harmless, but there's a lesson here about how his reactions backfire. Researchers point out that humor hits differently than other forms of criticism because it's not easy to argue with a joke. If someone calls you corrupt, you can deny it, but if someone calls you smelly and adds cartoon flies buzzing around your head, what are you supposed to say? Trump's defensiveness only reinforces the joke, making it even funnier and more memorable. Even in the middle of all this chaos, the Lincoln Project stayed quiet. They didn't need to say anything. Trump's reaction did all the heavy lifting for them. If anything, his meltdown gave the ad exactly what it needed to reach a wider audience. People who hadn't seen Limburger before suddenly wanted to check it out, just to see what all the fuss was about. It's like handing out flyers by throwing a fit in the middle of a crowded mall. Loud, embarrassing, but surprisingly effective. By the time the dust settled, Trump didn't just look angry, he looked insecure. Instead of dismissing the ad as a desperate stunt, as some advisors reportedly urged him to do, he gave it more importance than it deserved. And in doing so, he proved the Lincoln Project's point better than their own ad ever could. The Limburger video mocked him for being thin-skinned, and his immediate explosive reaction became the punchline. So where does this leave Trump's public image? At this point, it's less about what the Lincoln Project says and more about how Trump responds. He's trapped in a feedback loop of his own making, where every all caps post and every indignant rant just becomes content for the next wave of ridicule. And honestly, it raises a bigger question about how someone with such a fragile sense of self can keep going in the public spotlight. But one thing's for sure, when Trump's outrage is this predictable, it's almost like he's writing the Lincoln Project's ads for them. Trump's struggle with criticism isn't just funny, it's a serious weakness. When one parody ad can send him spiraling, it raises questions about how he'd handle actual crises or opposition. Leaders don't just command respect through power, they need composure, something Trump's meltdowns seriously lack. His public outbursts, far from dismissing the insults, actually spotlight them, making him look insecure rather than invincible. And if this single ad struck such a nerve, what happens next time the Lincoln Project, or anyone else, takes a creative swing? One thing's for sure, Trump's ego guarantees the drama isn't stopping here. Stay tuned.